I'm working as the kind of hostess and interviewer for the LCS. Basically talking to pros and interviewing them, asking them what's up. But I'm also basically freelance, meaning that I can also do content with other people. Not totally free like Travis, but mainly doing content with other teams like CLG or Golden Guardians and a couple others coming up soon. I'm working on my own stuff. TBD.
Yeah, and then for myself, so just a little bit of context. I've been working in esports since 2011, and sorry, am I jumping ahead? But
no, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. And started off right out of college, basically doing interviews in a show called State of the League, and then went to work at CBS Interactive after about a year as a contractor. CBS Interactive is the company that owns GameSpot and a couple other things, and so did a bunch of work over there. At the end of 2015, was looking for something new, so went to Yahoo, which was where Ovilee and I first started working together, and I ran stuff over there for their esports side. And then that ended up collapsing in the middle of 2017 because Verizon ended up buying Yahoo and shutting down a bunch of different stuff, including the team. And so I've been working independently ever since. I have a fake company called Gafford Industries that we meme about a lot. And then, and so I do interviews and shows. I did a fake award show last night. Do a lot of random stuff. So yeah, that's my stuff.
Cool. So how did you guys actually get into doing like esports stuff? Like what started your interest in that, and like what made you decide to pursue that as your career?
You go first because you had a long answer and I had a short answer.
Yeah, but but now I'm gonna have another long answer. And so I feel like if it's like long answer, then we need to like have you.
So I'll just keep it
you go.
I've been into gaming since I was like yay big and was still crawling on the floor and didn't know how to properly hold a Nintendo 64 controller. I got into kind of like, I guess, competitive online games when StarCraft 2 was getting popular in high school. From there I found League of Legends, thought that the game was utter garbage. I'm like, wow, I'm never going to play this game again for the rest of my life. This game sucks. And then that entire weekend, I think I just played only League and didn't leave my room. So that's kind of how I got hooked on League. But then from there, I kind of like stumbled on the competitive scene by accident. I think it was just on Reddit or something. And I ended up driving down to LA Live, which is like over here, for the Season 2 World Championships. I think it was the playoffs for it. And I walked in, and it was like a sea of nerds just like me. And I'm like, sick. I love this community. This is where I want to be for the rest of my life. So since then, I've just basically been doing anything that I can to kind of stick with it and replicate what I was feeling then.
So for me, I got into esports. So I had been into gaming from a pretty young age. Similarly, I got into PC gaming in junior high with StarCraft Brood War, and then eventually Warcraft 3. Amazing titles, and then spent most of my high school playing World of Warcraft and leading a guild there. Whenever I'd been aware of esports as a thing with Brood War and Warcraft 3, but really it wasn't until college when StarCraft 2 came out that I started to stay up really late to watch the games from Korea. And then I don't know, around that same time, so I was playing a lot of StarCraft and watching a lot of StarCraft online, and had started playing League of Legends in the beta, because I'd played Dota with friends, you know, the original Dota, on Warcraft 3, and a buddy of mine named Vagar ended up working at Riot as an intern. Later, obviously, would have a champion named after himself, and his actual name was Vagar, interestingly enough. He's an Icelandic guy, and he got me into the beta. I think my account's like 480 or something like that. Like it's within the first 1,000 accounts in League, which is really cool. And then I just kept playing League, but didn't really consider the esport at all. And so by 2011, I graduated college, and I ended up, a lot of you guys probably know, I ended up meeting Doublelift, and he came to live with me. And within the first couple of weeks, he decided he wasn't going to go to UCI because he had just graduated high school. He was going to go to UCI, but because he had left his parents' place, he couldn't get a scholarship. And so he was like, I'm just going to try doing this because I'm making money making guides for Curse, which was the team that he was with at the time. And so I had said, I wish that I could do something in esports, and as much as I'm loath to admit it, it was his suggestion that I start interviewing people. And so he suggested that, and at the time I was like so interested in StarCraft 2 esports, but I did not give a shit about League of Legends esports, despite the fact that there was, I was playing League way more by this point in time. And so I decided, like, hey, maybe I should, why is it that I care way more about StarCraft 2 than about League? And I realized there was just no ancillary content around any of the players. Like, if you wanted to learn about who the different players were, or like how they played the game, or like what the storylines were, the only thing you could really do is like watch a couple of streams online. Streaming was just like starting. You had to have like a really good computer, and so like it was like Hotshot.gg stream on 3D TV and all this shit. So I decided to create a podcast, and then that's kind of what got me going forward. So yeah.
Cool. So why did you specifically, I guess, like choose to be like a broadcast or like journalism communications major versus like other things?
For me?
Yeah.
Okay, so communication studies. So I actually, how many of you guys this will be super interesting. How many of you are in your first year of college? Okay, second year? Okay, third? And then fourth?
Thank God.
Okay, so most people are in their third and fourth. Okay, that's cool. So for me, my story was, have any of you guys seen Thank You for Smoking? Okay, you should all go see Thank You for Smoking. It's a great movie.
Is it on Netflix or what?
I don't know if it's on Netflix or not, but it's all about the main character is played by Aaron Eckhart, who was the guy that played Two-Face in the Batman movies before the Christian Bale Batman movies. And it's all about how he's a lobbyist for the tobacco industry. And it's like super funny, good and interesting movie that just talks about like how he talks for a living and what he's able to do by talking for a living and all that stuff. It's one of my favorite movies too. And so I watched that right before I went into college, and I decided I was going to be a lobbyist. I was like, this is super interesting. It's fascinating that this guy can just talk for a living and like really influence stuff. And so I was a political science major. And then I took within my first semester, I took a comm class, and it was super interesting. Are there any comm majors in the room? No, you guys are all nerds, so you're like comp sci people and engineers. Huh?
I'm actually poli-sci.
Okay, poli-sci, close enough. And so anyway, I took it, and the professor did such a good job of like saying these things that I found super fascinating, that I found super relevant even outside of like the academic side. Like stuff about how if you want to be a credible speaker, if you want to increase your credibility, you should always speak at a pace that is slightly faster than the region that you are in. So if you're in Texas, you can probably talk like a Californian, but if you're in California, you probably have to talk like a New Yorker. You just always have to, anyway, a bunch of random shit like that. I just found it super interesting. I thought maybe I could be a lobbyist, but I could also go and do this communication studies thing. I found it to be broadly applicable, and just decided that I would do that. Also, the classes were relatively easy. It was where they put all the jocks because I went to Long Beach State, that like, they were there to play basketball, and they're like, let's just shove them in these comm classes. So that my classes were always like, any of my groups, it would always be like me and 5 dudes in the class with a bunch of women, and then like 3 of the guys were like basketball players that didn't give a fuck. And then, so like the group projects were super fascinating. But anyway, so yeah, I just ended up doing comm because I found it to be broadly applicable. It was never like, I want to be an esports personality or a gaming personality or do journalism or anything like that. It just ended up like working out that way. I really like that I became a comm major. If any of the first year students are interested, like comm major stuff is actually pretty interesting, and nobody really knows about comm until you get to college because it's not like a thing before that. Should give Ovilee a question now, because I talked to you.
Well, I was also a communication major, but not for the lovely reason that you were. I suck at school. I suck at math. I suck at remembering things. Science was terrible. I almost failed statistics twice. So when I was applying to colleges, my main goal was I need to go to college in LA because that's where esports lives. It has to be in LA.
She's from the Bay.
I'm from Northern California. So it's like I need to go to college. So I applied to like CSU Long Beach. I applied to a bunch of CSUs. No UCs because I already knew that I was too dumb to get in. And basically Chapman was one of the only schools that would take me. And the only major that my college counselor said was, listen, your grades suck. The only thing you can get in under is communications. So I'm like, all right, sweet, I gotta take communications. So like Travis said, it was just a bunch of dumb jocks and then all the sorority girls and stuff. But I actually loved every single one of those classes. If you guys have the ability to take interpersonal communication classes, that was my favorite class. That and like the dark side of communication. It just teaches you how to actually sit down and talk to people and have a conversation, or understanding the verbals and nonverbals, all that stuff. But communication major aside, that's kind of how I got plopped into it. But I actually double majored into broadcast journalism as well, because I know USC has like a really good film school here, but I'm not sure if they have a news department like my college did. Chapman. My college Chapman did. I basically went in there and I'm like, hey, I see you guys are doing sports news. You guys are doing like local news and everything. What about esports though? And I convinced my professor to let me have like a 3-minute segment where I just got to talk about, I think Capcom Cup was on at the time. The Tracer Overwatch booty scandal was on at the time. Like, I was just talking about random stuff, and my professor was like, this is the best thing ever. Can you come do this every single week? I'm like, yes. But then he poached me, so that didn't happen.
Yeah. We'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that later. But yeah, that's kind of how I fell into those majors. Not as heartwarming as Travis's communication story.
Yeah, I like what you were saying with interpersonal comm. The really cool thing I'll hone in. Like I know we kind of talk shit on comm by saying it's like so easy, but one of the things I just really liked about that degree was that it just felt, almost every class felt really applicable to every aspect of life. Like interpersonal communication, you're going to deal with that in the workplace, at home, and relationships. Like it was just really cool to like actually learn shit that felt like really strongly applicable. So that's why I'm a huge proponent of the comp studies major for people that are interested in it.
So what they're telling you is switch your majors to comm.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily,
well, no,
but
aren't you engineers and stuff? You're going to make more money.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone here is an engineer.
Probably a lot of people are. I feel like the overlap between esports fans and like engineers or science majors and
go cure cancer or something. We'll just talk to people.
Yeah.
So obviously, like you guys are working in like broadcast and like journalism right now. But if that didn't work out, what do you think you would have done instead?
Honestly, I was working a lot behind the scenes. So I was doing event production. I was doing social media for a lot of different teams. I was doing like, me and my friends, we were all college kids and we had a small production company. And I'm like, screw it, I'm the only one who's been taking like communication classes and mediation classes. I was mini HR for them because everyone wanted to kill each other. Because like group projects, I'm sure you guys have had those, like take that, but now there's money behind it. So if you don't finish your group project, you don't get paid. So yeah, if I didn't do broadcast stuff, if Travis didn't find me, because honestly, I wasn't even thinking of doing any on-camera stuff, I probably would have gone into maybe trying to direct, be a technical director, or some sort of behind-the-scenes production stuff for esports.
The job that I wanted when I graduated, because I knew I wanted to work on the video game side, like by the time I was done with college, I knew like the lobbyist thing was done and I really wanted to work in games. And the job that I was going for was being a producer at a video game company because, again, like we've established, I'm not great at most things. And so the thing that was really interesting to me was I want to go work in the video game industry, but I don't really know what to do because I can't do music, I can't do any kind of software development or like programming. I don't know how to do art or whatever. And so the thing that I knew was kind of how to work with people and talk to people. And a producer really sits in the middle and tries to bring all the different aspects of a project together. And so that was the thing that I was looking to become, was like, hey, I can go like lead and be like a project manager or producer at these different companies and sort of help bring everything together. So I think that's what I would have tried to do. I really wanted to work in gaming, so that was probably where my stuff was headed before all this happened.
So can you guys tell us a little bit about like what you guys do every day in your jobs? Like what does it look like to be Travis Gafford or Ovilee May?
For LCS days, it's basically wake up bright and early in the morning. I think depending on the day, because sometimes EU pushes our schedule back, we either show up to the studio at like 11 or 9.
Bright and early.
Bright and
11
early.
or not. I'm sure some of you guys have
You don't
8 o'clock
stroll
classes.
in until like
No, but I would
noon.
never claim that I come in bright and early.
I call that bright and
11 or
early.
9.
When
Yeah.
you're going to bed at like 2, that's bright and early. So yeah, we usually do like a quick read through or story meeting where we're just refreshing on everything that we're going to cover for the day. Casters go into rehearsal. I can't really rehearse interviews. I'll to get this shit ready. But yeah, from there, as soon as the show starts, everything becomes kind of like hectic. Like you're running in and out, you're trying to talk to players while they're sitting down in makeup to see if there's anything new that they want to share that you want to try to pull out of them. After players are done with makeup, they run up on stage, they play their game. It's like a balancing act going between the two, trying to catch coaches for side stage interviews, and then waiting for the player to come out, preparing the question, going back to the producers and coming through. It's pretty cool seeing how all of the different pieces in a broadcast work together, because you need the graphics team in order to see like the scoreboard go up. You need all the observers to see the freaking game, and you have the director calling the shots between everything. So I'm honestly just like a super small piece in the giant puzzle that is LCS. But
There's a video that we did together on my YouTube channel that is literally like what it's like I did like a ride along with her basically for LCS if you guys want to go see. It's like a vlog that we did.
Yeah.
And you can find it in my vlog section or whatever, just to plug my own content. But it gives you like, you literally can sort of see like all the aspects of her day building up.
It's pretty cool. And then at the end of the day, we usually have like another story meet for the next day or for the next week. Talk about what happened that day and then get ready to do it again.
For me, no day is the same. Like LCS days can be pretty standard, show up and do interviews, but quite honestly, like nowadays the LCS stuff is like the easiest, most standard thing that I do. It's just like everything else I'm doing is way crazier and more hectic and more anxiety inducing. A huge part of what people probably don't know that I do is all the business aspect of what I'm doing. So it's like literally finding people to work with me, paying them, planning stuff, what's the next project that we're going to do. A large part of it is navigating sponsor and money stuff, because I actually have a guy who helps me with that kind of thing. But even then, like just sitting in meetings with sponsors and like a lot of the sponsorship, like you guys see deals maybe if you watch my content, where you're like, oh, we got this sponsorship or this happened, but that might be one of like 4 different things that didn't happen. Like it's just a lot of conversation around all those different things. Hiccups happen where like, hey, suddenly we thought we were going to be able to get this. Like a good example of that is we did a deal with U.GG and Caffeine for some interviews out of their channel or out of their studio. Caffeine, by the way, it's like a streaming platform that's starting to pop up. And we were supposed to get like 6 interviews with different team owners, and we were going to give them 7 instead, but then on the last day, Rick Fox had to cancel and Steve from Team Liquid was sick. So now it's like, all right, how do we navigate this? Because we only delivered 5. So there's a whole lot of that stuff. Also just like simple things like trying to figure out gear that we need or get that stuff fixed, or who can help me with this thing? How do I expand? How do I do different types of content? Like one problem that I have to fix in 2019 is like every piece of content that goes on my YouTube channel right now, I have like a really big hand in some aspect of it. Maybe not the editing, but maybe in the planning, maybe in the writing, maybe in whatever. The problem now means that like I've run out of bandwidth. So how do I create more content? How do I expand the YouTube channel? How do I do more if I can't invest more into it myself? So trying to find other people that can help me with that. Please don't send me emails offering to help me because I get a lot of those. I really appreciate it. Usually I just need somebody with like very specific skill set. But yeah, like it's just a whole lot of crazy shit on any given day, and all the days are very different.
So how do you manage to like stick your foot into say like the esports industry? Because a lot of these students, we might not have like the connections, we might not know people. How do you, talk to like, let's say like a team owner and be like, I want to intern for you, or how do you get started into being able to work for like a company or
Sure.
something like that?
Oh geez. I was a little different. I never really like stuck my foot in the door of anything. I just tried to like kick it the fuck down. In terms of like connections and stuff, I was super nervous and super introverted at the beginning. I felt like I was troubling people if I tried to talk to them. I had seen Travis before when I was like way younger, but I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Travis Gafford. Like I can't even be in the same like area. What do I do? So I mean, that is kind of difficult because I felt like as soon as I made one thing that I thought was pretty cool, I made a really dumb video that is now unlisted and no one can see it. I actually used that to say like, hey, I've done stuff before. Can I do anything with you guys? I've done this before. This is like the work that I've done.
I mean, how did you get the TDK thing?
The
You can
TDK
talk
thing
about
was a
that.
fucking joke. So who remembers the days of TDK? The rest of you don't need to.
Team Dragon Knights.
Team Dragon Knights was an LCS team. Sarah, yeah. That was just god awful.
Half their team wasn't even there.
Yeah, half their team wasn't even there. They blamed their, oh gosh. So actually, that was funny because I got the TDK job.
Well, what was the TDK job?
TDK job, it was literally just social media and they wanted like communications. And I'm like, hey, listen, I've taken a bunch of communication classes. I was only in my first year of college, and I'm like, sure, I'll do whatever you guys want.
How did you find out?
I got
about
it from, yeah, I was getting to it.
What happened?
You're asking
How
me
did
so
you
many
get
different
there?
questions. I actually got it through a friend who was running that whole production company that I was working for in college. I think it was, Broden was friends with his roommate. And then Broden was part of my esports club. And then he introduced me to him. So see, it's like all of these random ass, talk to some one person, they know another person. Everyone be friends with everyone in here, because if you guys do like esports, one person gets like a small internship and they say, hey, we're looking for another intern. You grab the other person, you say, hey buddy, they have an opening over here. I feel like I'm going all over the place. You're usually much more composed with your
I was just letting you answer, and then I'd come in for the cleanup.
Oh yeah, clean it up. I'm just saying, like, kick some doors down, send some messages to people. You don't have to be best friends with someone in order to say, like, hey, if you have any openings, just send a polite, informal letter, and know how to ask for things.
Yeah.
Know how to politely ask for things.
So a couple things here. One is if you can, just start doing shit. Because the amount of messages I get from people, it's like, what should I start on, or what should I do, or how do I do this, or whatever. And the advice I always have is like, or the advice I always give is like, go do something, because that's going to be far more impressive than just asking people what to do. It does not matter what you do. So good examples of this are like, you can volunteer to be part of your college's esports team program, right? Like either as a manager, social media, or whatever. You can, if you're an artist, start doing stuff like make emotes for people, make advertisements or brochures for your club or for smaller teams, like whatever random, like, and by the way, if you work with people at a low level of esports, it's just going to be a shit show. Just hang out there and like do the shit show stuff, because what you are looking to do with all of this is show, I did this thing. So the Ovilee situation is a good example that when I was at Yahoo, we had two needs that we needed. We had a lot of people that were pretty like middle management or high level, but we didn't have anybody who was kind of entry level to help us with some of like the day-to-day tasks. And also, I needed somebody to help me do LCS interviews because at this point in time I was running Yahoo Esports, so I was working 5 days a week, and then I'd go to do LCS on the weekends, and then I'd go work 5 days a week, and it was just like not working. So I was on the lookout for somebody who could do this. Broden, who went to college with Ovilee and was working with us by this point in time, had said like, hey, Ovilee, do you know Ovilee? I was like, yeah, I remember her vaguely from before. And he said, hey, she's asking if there's an internship. We didn't have like a formal internship, but it kind of put it into my mind. And then there were two things that I saw from Ovilee during this time. One was that she was doing stuff on the broadcast at her college, what she was just talking about, where she did like the esports update as part of her like college broadcasting news show or whatever. And then the other thing she did was on her own channel. This was the thing that was most impressive to me. She had decided on her own or on her own YouTube channel to just do a single instance of a Overwatch contender or Overwatch collegiate.
Yeah, it was Tespa's.
Yeah. Tespa's collegiate
Overwatch series.
Overwatch series, and she just did like an update. Here's what's happening. And like in both those situations, viewership was not the goal. It did not need to be a situation where like her video like went bonkers or whatever. But I saw it and I was like, okay, one, she's got the initiative to do these things, and she's demonstrating that she can kind of do it. You know, like obviously a little rough around the edges at the time, but and so for me, I brought her in because I knew, one, maybe she could help me do the LCS stuff. I didn't even tell her that was part of the plan when we brought her on, because I was just curious to see how she would do. But I had that in the back of my mind. But at the very least, like she could help us if we needed, like, hey, we need somebody to go find like B-roll for us in all these different places, or oh, we need somebody who can help like organize or prep for the show or whatever. So she was able to help with that. So highly recommend just doing stuff, and then don't email people like crazy and be super annoying. But definitely feel free to put yourself out there. Like if you have an example of something that you can do, you guys are super lucky because you live in LA. So if you like Overwatch, if you like LCS, if you like whatever other events are happening down here, you can literally go up to team owners at these events when you see them and say, hi, my name is so-and-so. I go to this school, I'm a major. I have done these two things before. Is there like any opportunity that you guys need somebody to kind of help out and volunteer or whatever at your organization? So it's just a matter of like doing things and then being willing to talk to people, and you can start to find something if that's what you're looking for. Long-winded answer, but it's like, I get this question all the time, so I've developed a long-winded answer for it.
I think like the only short thing I tag on to that is when you're at the beginning, just say yes to everything. Nothing is like beneath you if it's, hey, can you go grab water for this event that we're running? Like people remember that. If it's you approach the team owner and you're saying like, hey, I want to do something in accounting or something, they're like, oh, we don't have anything in accounting right now, but we need someone to intern as like a desk assistant. Take that, because who knows? That could, you speak to the people in the office and they're like, oh, hey, we have an opening in accounting now. Why don't you take it? We know you. We know that you're a hard worker.
Yeah.
Say yes to everything.
Brief history of my buddy Nick Allen. In 2012, he was a grad student. He went to go work to take very little money, minimum wage, working as like a assistant league ops person on a StarCraft tournament for IPL, and then which doesn't exist anymore. Then that allowed him to apply for like a main job working on League of Legends. He didn't know anything about League of Legends esports at the time, but he just wanted to do it. So he got minimum wage doing that. Then that turned into he got promoted because like esports is pretty small industry. You can get promoted pretty easily, so he moved up the chain. Especially back then, it was super easy. Within like a year or two, he was basically running he was like the division lead for League. Then that died, so then he went to go work at Riot on their esports stuff. Then he decided that he wanted to move back, so he went and ran esports for Twitch, and now he runs CLG. So it's like that has happened since 2012. So in terms of like a career, like that's a very short period of time for all that stuff to happen in. So you just, and it all started with him desiring to do this like assistant lead ops job. So.
So I mean, you guys talked a lot about like how to put yourself out there, but what about like in terms of like skill set? What do you think like the most important types of like skill sets that students might need to have to work in like esports?
Do you want me to handle this, or do you have ideas?
I mean, I think we kind of covered the first thing. My thing is always just be ready to put yourself out there and be polite about it.
But like high in-demand jobs are like, I think the biggest one is social media. People really want a good social media person. So again, like creating a meme account. If you think you're funny and you can speak to stuff authentically, like literally creating a meme Twitter account and like letting yourself show that as like a body of work that you've done is really smart. Because actually, like people don't just want an account. Like the really popular accounts are like the Cloud9 account, which is incredible, and they're great at memeing and taking pot shots at other people. Team Liquid's starting to get there. Like these are a lot of the roles that people want, and continuously I'm asked, do you know anybody that can do social media? So that's a pretty high in demand one. But ultimately, you want to find something that's like authentic to you. So it can be programming, it can be engineering, it can be photography or videography or any of these types of things, because that's what's really going to allow you to like if it's something you're passionate about, you're going to be far more likely to get good at it, which is going to make you far more desirable as a hire.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but this was one thing that I noticed when I was starting to enter the scene. The one thing that seemed like was super lacking was actual education. Because it seemed like at the time, everyone from esports was just a buddy that you pulled in that you knew from like high school or something, or a buddy that you used to play like games with. It seemed like there was not a lot of people with like actual degrees behind anything, and that people were just trying to figure things out.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's changing, but yes, like if you can establish that you've done stuff before. I mean, like my creative director, Broden, went to film school and was able to show like a body of work he'd done as like a cinematographer, and so that made him pretty desirable to get hired at a bunch of different.
What do you think is like the best part about your job?
For me, it's just I get to do something that I absolutely love every single day. I love esports, I love gaming, I love League, I love all of these players, and to be able to share crazy moments like Liquid getting their first split win, Double Lift picking up the MVP trophy, like all of that shit is great.
There are so many, I super love my job. There are so many cool aspects to it. I think being a part of all this stuff and being able to see it happen, going to the big events and watching all that stuff happen, being friends with a lot of the folks in the space and watching them succeed, like the pro players and what they can accomplish. And then there's just like a bunch of really cool side stuff like the travel. For me, I always knew that whatever job this is for, everyone's very different, but for me, like I need a lot of people to say like, hey, you did a good job here, or like I needed to be able to be like credited with stuff, right? So I found literally the perfect job for me, where I literally make YouTube videos and then can just read the comments and be like, oh, you like the video, this is great, amazing. You know, it's like that positive feedback and sometimes negative feedback is really invaluable for me, whereas I think I would not do as well at a job where like I don't get that kind of feedback. So everyone's pretty different, but that stuff is pretty cool. I also get a ton of free shit. Like the Alienware stuff is so awesome. They literally just gave me, as part of our deal, like, a very big gift card, and I just went onto the Dell and Alienware site and ordered basically all the shit that I wanted. Which is why I get to watch, or why I get to play Red Dead Redemption 2 in 4K on like a giant Dell projector. It's pretty sweet. Yeah, highly recommend.
That being said, like you guys definitely get a lot of cool opportunities. What do you think is like probably the coolest like interview that you
Team interview for Team Liquid after their first win in Miami, because I was sitting there absolutely nervous because it was the first full team interview I'd ever done. It was the first time I was on stage, like an actual stage, not just the LCS stage. So I was there shaking, but then I remember looking at all the players and they were shaking too, but it was from just excitement. It was just excited because they had finally won. They like whooped 100 Thieves so bad. I think Ole was like tearing up or crying after the win. Even Smithy, who's usually just like this the whole time, he was happy. Impact was jumping up and down. I don't even remember half the questions, but I just remember the conversations and everyone and the emotions that was coming out of them. And talking with Steve and Steve tearing up, finally, like, we did it. Geez, that was probably my favorite interview or moment.
I think my favorite interview, ironically, is one where I'm not on camera at all. After Peter finally won his first LCS split, which was summer 2015 at Madison Square Garden, about a week after that, myself and Damien Estrada, who used to run One Up Studios over at Team Liquid and now is their creative director, he and I did like a documentary that's actually kind of hard to find now, but on Peter, and I did like an hour-long interview with him basically about like the path that he took and everything that was going through and his motivations and finding success. I really, really enjoyed that interview and felt really good about the content we were able to make out of it. And then more recently, I did a series of interviews that didn't do bonkers view-wise, but I think are really good, called Playmakers, which was this 8-episode series I did with a bunch of people over at Riot Games. In part, by the way, that series was meant to at least be something that people in university or people who are trying to get into the game industry could watch, because we tried to spotlight a lot of different roles at gaming companies, not just like designers or artists or whatever, because we wanted to show like the full scope of people. Like we have a person who's like a security person who like is super into hacking and like helps them with all that stuff. And we have people who work on the marketing side, and we have people who work in all these different areas. We're actually getting ready to do season 2 in the next week or so. And so it's just kind of, those I felt were really good because I like the tone of them and what we were able to accomplish with them as well.
And then what would you say is like the most, like the scariest or like the most nerve-wracking interview that you've had to do? I don't know.
I assume it's very similar, like it might be the same one for you, right?
For me? Well, yeah, that one was scary, but I think the scariest for me was, it was like my 3rd week, maybe, of doing interviews for Riot, like officially. It was during the promotion relegation tournament when that's still happening. And I was starting an interview with a player. Everything seemed fine. I was just like, hey, you guys.
Oh, is this the special interview?
Okay, well, I was trying to say player instead of names.
I mean,
but
who cares?
All right. Okay, so I had an interview with Special. P1, yeah, he was on P1. They were safe. They made it through relegation, so they were alive. And I was just asking them, like, hey, you made it through, how does it feel? Okay. Hey, what about your teammates and stuff? And hold the mic over, and he takes a deep breath, and then he just like bends over and starts like crying super hard. And I had no idea what to do, because this was the first time, like, still like 3 weeks. So it was probably like my 5th day or something. And I'm just like, shit. So I just remember like putting my hand on his shoulder. I'm like, is there anything you want to say to your teammates or something? Because his teammates were in front of him. And they were just watching him tear up and cry. And he finally like mustered it together and was like, I just want to say I'm sorry to my teammates. I want to say thank you for helping me through. And then I just ended the interview there, and I was just like, crap. So then I walked off stage, and I was physically shaking because I was feeling his emotions. I had the adrenaline from trying to handle the situation. And then I sat down in the makeup room, and then I teared up a little bit because I was like, I absorbed his emotions, and I'm like, okay, I gotta let him go now. I gotta let him go. So that was the hardest for me.
I think for me, I don't tend to get very nervous during interviews. I think just because I was able to kind of ease into them by doing pretty simple ones back in the day. But it is always really interesting whenever I interview somebody who has like I almost want to call it like an aura of, I don't know, grandeur or something. Like a pretty good example of that is Rick Fox. So for me, it's usually been really nice because the vast majority of the people that I interview, I have like way more experience on camera than, and I'm like way more comfortable. This is my job. Rick Fox is like, former NBA champion and has been in movies and has been on all these different broadcasts and TV shows and all that stuff. And so the first time I went to interview him, it was like, especially as the interview started, it was just so like interesting to me because I could just sense like the very big difference in our experience in these moments. And so it wasn't like I felt like I didn't have control, but like the very easy advantage that I sort of wield to feel comfortable and confident on camera, it was like I just definitely didn't have it there. And similar situations, like I've interviewed the founders of Riot a couple times, and Mark Merrill is just like this super confident guy that's built like this $1 billion company. And interestingly, like as time has gone on, it's been easier for me to identify him as like a human like everybody else. But it's still like interesting because if I'm sitting down to interview him and it's almost like a face-off situation, it's like a weird it's weird in that it took me a couple years for me to feel confident enough in like realizing that I had just as much power in that situation as this other guy who's also very powerful in the industry. So it was just interesting, I think, to say the least.
I think a lot of people, like nowadays, we're expected that we have to give like large presentations or like on camera, like we're doing a lot more like on camera stuff, on camera like interviews with like employers and stuff. I guess like what's like some sort of advice that you'd give to people who might like be nervous for that stuff? I guess since you guys do like a lot of on camera stuff.
Do 100 jumping jacks in the morning. It sounds like a meme. It's not. If you get your heart rate up earlier in the morning with any types of exercise, when you're in more stressful situations later during the day, it's like, I don't know, I told you I'm crap at science. There's some sort of scientific reason behind it. But like your heart will not hit that heart rate again or something like that. That's like a scientific tip.
I've never done that before in my life. But you can do that. If it works for Ovilee, maybe.
It works. Just do a bunch.
I don't know. It's hard for me because I hate roller coasters and would never jump out of a plane or anything like that. But I really like the adrenaline rush of like going up and standing in front of a ton of people. When I was at CES a couple weeks ago, I got to go on stage and introduce like Glitch Mob for this Alienware party, and it was like a booked out concert hall. That shit is so fun, and so I like it a lot. But I think just trying to get yourself to believe at any given point in time that you have all the control in the situation, because I think for a lot of people, they think, all right, I'm standing up there and everyone's watching me. Oh no, blah blah blah. But like everyone's watching you because you now have control in that moment of like their attention. You are the reason why they are there. They have to listen to you. If you are interviewing somebody, like something that I told Ovilee is like you're holding the mic, you're the one conducting the interview, like you are in complete control and power there. And so knowing that like you have complete control of the situation and everybody kind of has to fall in line, I think that is a really good thing to just feel, because it's going to, I think, help you get past a lot of the anxiety that you might feel, right? Like, you're the fucking boss, all right? They're here watching you, all this stuff is happening, like, you're in a great place.